Okay, so I know what I want to plant and I know
Mhm.
what kind of containers to use, but how do I know where to start with design?
So I like to use the 5 S's,
Okay.
and that is sun,
Hmm.
soil, seed, season, and space.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of each, but the first thing that you need to be thinking about is sun. This is something that we can't really change once things are set up. Now, you are going to be container gardening, so you'll be able to shift things a little bit.
Right.
But finding a spot that has enough sun exposure for the plants to thrive is going to be really important to setting the stage for success.
Okay.
The next thing to consider is going to be your soil. And we've talked about how important soil is, especially when you're container gardening. That is its world. It does not get to send its roots down into the soil like in a raised bed or in the ground.
Yeah.
So making sure your soil is spot on is going to be really important for containers. After that, you start thinking about your seasons.
Okay.
So, when plants are stressed, if you're trying to grow something that likes heat when it's cool, or something that loves cold in the spring when things are warming up, they're going to be stressed out, and it can lead to things like bolting or bitter tasting leaves.
Hmm.
So, figuring out what to grow each season is going to make the plants not only produce better, but taste better too.
Okay.
After that, it's important to start thinking about seed. Now, it doesn't mean you have to start with seeds, it just means thinking about the varieties that you're going to start planting. So, finding things that are really well adapted to growing in your climate is going to make all the difference as to the success or failure. So, finding the tomatoes that are adapted to humidity, or the cucumbers that can tolerate arid growing conditions. Start thinking about the seeds and the types of varieties that you're going to grow, and that will lead the way to really good production and yields. After that, you've got your sun, your soil, your space. We're going to think about spacing, and so container gardening, it matters how much space these plants have, how much pot size these plants have, because
Right.
that's their world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if things are too densely planted, they're going to have issues like fighting for nutrients and water. They could end up with powdery mildew issues because they don't have good airflow. So, giving things adequate room and space to
Mm-hmm.
grow will really help with maintenance issues and pest control and all of that down the road.
Okay.
So, make sure that they have adequate space. It's going to depend on what you're planting as to how much space they need.
Right.
But then from there are two more things to consider when we're looking at the 5 S's. You also want to consider when you're setting up the gardens watering. So, container gardens, like I said, they can't send their roots down, so you are in charge of water.
Right.
That's something that you're going to directly control. So,
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure that the soil gets adequately or evenly moist all the way through the pot, not just at the surface. Sticking your finger in tells you a lot. So, we may water it with a watering can and think we did good, but when you dig your finger in there, the soil could be dry an inch down. And
Okay.
that's where all the roots are growing. So,
Okay.
making sure that you've got enough water to keep the plant happy,
Mm-hmm.
and then also thinking about pollinators. So I'm an organic gardener. I do a mostly hands-off approach in the garden, but that means having lots of other plants that may not actually be food, like flowers, in the area for the containers, so that the plants have bees and butterflies and all of the lovely pollinators, also the beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go to flowers. And so when we have lots of flowers and things blooming near our food plants are going to yield more for us because of that interaction.